Thank you, and I thank you for inviting me to give this presentation today. It's an honor to be here and to share what I think is one of the best test facilities in the world, and along with NCAT, our partners down in the south. So I'm going to kind of go through and talk today a little bit about our test track, a little bit of what we're doing here, and what is opportunities for you. Again, I think we're looking for partners to be in our research and to kind of advance the profession that we're in here. So I'm going to talk a little bit why we're doing research, what's the impact that we have, a little bit about MnROAD, a little bit about the past MnROAD and the future, and kind of go through that. Today we have Buzz Powell that's going to be talking about NCAT, some of the partnerships we're with, and Jerry Guy will be talking about recycling and kind of focusing on that MnDOT's gone through. So I'll be kind of setting the stage for that. When you look at the remaining service life in Minnesota, we have pavement management vans that run across the state and look at our roads. And we look at the roads and we kind of figure out how much remaining service life is. And this is where the roads get down to the point where something should be done. We can still drive on them, but they're pretty much shot. And this is kind of looking back at 2000s where we had a kind of a 13.7 years remaining service life. And you kind of see how the whole tail there's a tail at the end that kind of shows that we have some roads in the back, so we can kind of have a balanced approach to our designs. But you can see how things changed over the years. We have different issues going on with our state. We fund different things. We may not maintain our roads. We may not, quote, paint the house as well as we should and maintain it. But you can see since 13 years since then, we've gone down to 9.4 years of remaining service life. So we've lost 5 years. And we lost that tail I was talking about at the end. We don't have as much of a balanced approach. So when we start spending money on rehabilitation, we're not going to be able to put the money towards it because there's just not that funding to do that, to catch up. So it's very important that I think the recycling, the stuff that we'll be talking about the next couple of days, and the work we do at MnROAD is to kind of look at rehabilitation and how we can do that the best we can. A little background on MnROAD. Who has been out at MnROAD, I guess? Cool, there's not many people. So it'd be great to have you out there. We've been in operations for 22 years now. Again, Minnesota Department of Transportation is leading the MnROAD facility. They've owned and operated it with their partners with the Local Road Research Board. Minnesota has a group that puts money towards research from the locals, from the cities and counties. They get 1/2 of 1%, and they've been supporting MnROAD over the last 22 years. We also work with pooled funds. That's where we're working with states. That's how we work with NCAT, Sharp Tooth, FHWA. And right now, I'll talk a little bit about the National Road Research Alliance, is what we're working on right now. We both have concrete and asphalt. We're in a cold environment and work with new and rehabilitation of pavements. And we've gone through 3 different experiments. The initial experiments from 94 to 2006. We did a lot of structural designs at that first part. Found that our concretes are thicker than they need to be. They don't need to be as thick. We figured out the environment causes more damage on our asphalt roads. Phase 2, we went through a number of different experiments, pooled fund studies for 10 years. And now we're heading into our 3rd phase that I'll be talking about later. So if those are not familiar with MnROAD, it's a test facility, it's a real-life experiment, real-life equipment, real-life materials, real-life traffic. We have existing I-94. We had 2 lanes there that were built in 1973. We built our main line next to that. That's where we divert traffic from the old westbound onto the I-94 main line, we call it. We typically have traffic. We move traffic off 3 days a month so we can go out and do monitoring, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But we can divert the traffic back and forth and kind of have test sections on that main line. Now we do have test sections on our old westbound also. We have a low-volume road. This was brought to you by the Local Road Research Board. We do lots of national research, even on our local system. A lot of the issues are the same. But this is where we have controlled traffic, and we drive a truck around 60 laps a day on the inside lane, looking at the damage of that. But again, it's to simulate a low-volume road, thinner designs, different conditions for those locals and their needs. And we're also building test sections. We started building test sections on the old westbound, the original westbound We're doing some different things out there, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. So the traffic, again, looking at the low volume road, this is where I praise Doug, the truck driver. Doug drives around the track 60 laps a day. Doug says it's better than farming. Those who've heard me talk, I've said that joke too many times. But Doug drives around the circles. He provides the loadings. That's how we get our traffic. And you see the easels there for rigid and flexible easels. The outside lane, again, is environmental, where we're not trafficking, looking at what the environment causes for damage versus truck and the environment. We also have the interstate main line. This is a very heavy trafficked road. Probably get about 13% trucks out there with a high ADT, ADT. So when you look at all the studies that are going on, it's quite a maze of studies, I guess. We have 35 unique ongoing studies out there right now. We have 141 unique test cells. Of that, the interstate, again, we have 12 ongoing studies out there, 44 test sections in our 3.5 miles. The old westbound 3.5 miles, we have 4 ongoing studies that we started up in 2010 and about 48 test sections. Then the low volume road itself, again, the Local Road Research Board sponsors that along with cities and counties, 19 studies and 49 test sections. So, you know, we've also added test sections off-site. This is with NCAT, and we'll be hearing more about that from Buzz and possibly Jerry later on today, but kind of the partnership with NCAT. We have test sections off the track, but now we have a pavement management van that we can collect data on and take care of the operations. So we can track the performance of those test sections. So we have a lot of different things going on, a lot of things to track, a lot of good things that we're doing with our group. Our operations, again, we work on the partnerships and the research development, working with people like you on what's the next study that's needed, coordination of construction. But we also been monitoring the traffic, the loadings, the performance monitoring, cracking, rutting, ride. Sensors, we have environmental and dynamic sensors, and the database. And this all kind of goes into developing the background for each study and give it the basis that it needs to be successful. We also do technology transfer and getting the word out. Some of the benefits that we've seen over the years of the first phase, we had about a 9-to-1. We have a paper out on this, benefit to cost. We did a lot of different things on spring load restrictions, low temperature cracking, things like that. We also, in phase 2, in the last 10 years, we bought a 5-to-1 ratio that we've seen. Now, you can see all different studies there we've worked with, but there's a lot of benefits on doing things in a small scale before we build a large scale throughout the state. MnROAD's been used for not only showing how something can work and build it further on beyond that, but also just the idea of building something that people see and then kind of as a demonstration project that they then can build for themselves. For example, we had two types of concrete sections, not that you guys are big concrete fans, but the idea here is that we originally built 9.5-inch concrete and 7.5-inch concrete. They both perform the same. So building a 7.5-inch is working out just fine for us in reducing the thickness of our concrete. That kind of gave people confidence that yes, you can build something thinner, and yes, you can save money on materials and things like that. Talking a little bit about our national research initiatives, we've been working with NCAT on 2 studies. One study had to do with a pavement preservation study. Another had to deal with working with developing a national cracking test for HMA pavements. We got a number of different groups in this, states that are involved, industry that's involved. This partnership goes through, and we develop through pavement preservation, working with the NCAT being in the south, hot, warm, non-freeze. MnROAD north, cold, freeze. We had high and low volume test sections, but again, this partnership helped us develop kind of doing national studies with climatic zones, having consistent ways of collecting data and producing results, and quantifying the life-extending benefits of pavement preservation. That's kind of the study that we're working with the Malacca test sections, Lee Road test sections down in Alabama, along with US 280. So we've developed these test sections with the same contractor, building the same test sections. We have a number of test sections. This kind of shows a map of up near Malacca, which is about an hour north of here, looking at our high volume preservation, chip seals, cape seals, microsurfacing, thin lays, different treatments. Same with the low volume road with CASA 8. The idea here is we built the same test sections on different volumes of roads. We built the same test sections down at NCAT. They built them a year before us, but the same contractor built them. So a lot of consistency here to kind of come up with different studies that will not only help out Minnesota and Alabama, but will help out states in between. And that's how we're kind of working towards the national goals. And then we looked at performance tests. This is developing different criteria for mixes before you place them on the cracking potential of those mixes. You've heard about balanced mix designs and things like that. I think there's a talk later on today. But NRRA MnROAD have been working with that on the HMA performance test, kind of looking at the different tests utilizing the NCAT test track along with the MnROAD test track, and looking at all these different types of goals that we have for performance tests and kind of come up with a test that nationally can be used to predict performance. And again, you need something that's going to correlate to performance. We built test sections related to that, do the number of different tests, and move forward with that. Test section we built at MnROAD, we built test sections out on our main line. We built a number of those to kind of look at low temperature cracking. And in 2016, we built test sections, which is kind of interesting is we built some that we hope fails and some that we hope has longevity to them. And the idea here is we use some stiff binders. You can kind of see the different potentials that we have for cracking. But you can see that we use a -22 asphalt here in Minnesota is kind of silly because we get down to -40. So that should crack. That should show in our performance test that it'll crack. Then when you look at the ones with low potential, the idea of putting less wrap, different things like that in a mix with lower volume or lower PG graded asphalt, those shouldn't crack as much. So we're hoping that we built these test sections that we can run the materials through, kind of predict performance, and then see the observations later on. And the same thing they're doing down at NCAT, but they're looking at top-down cracking instead of low-temperature cracking. I guess other things that are going on here in Minnesota is we have a group called the National Road Research Alliance, and this is something relatively new in the last couple of years. It's a pooled fund study. But this is our attempt to kind of share the test facility with other states and other industry and academia and associations. It's a pooled fund. We started in 2016. Again, we're trying to look at national and regional issues, not just local issues. We want to foster innovation with states, academia, and industry, and best utilize the MnROAD test track the best we can. We put $3 million of MnDOT construction money into this, but we also have about a $3 million pooled fund study with 6 states and about upwards of 40 academia associate members a part of this. But again, we're trying to develop innovation, trying to focus on implementation, technology transfer, and training. I think we've done a lot of research in the country overall in the last number of years. We're trying to get that information out to people and to utilize it for this benefits. That's what we're kind of looking for with NRRA. So some of the agency members, again, the Local Road Research Board, Caltrans, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Missouri are part of the pooled funds study right now. But again, this pooled fund studies, along with the NCAT pooled fund studies, we're always looking for members, more members to join in. Sometimes people say that joining like the NRRA is about $150,000 a year to join for each state per year. And that's a lot of money. But when you look at putting that money towards, some states say they're a small state and they can't afford that kind of thing. But when you look at having 10 other states put in that money, you got about a 10-to-1 benefit cost right there at the start. So I think it's quite a deal to join. Different universities that are part of it, different associations, along with ARRA is a part of member too. So we really appreciate their membership in mid-states. So what we're doing is we're trying to work with kind of balancing both research along with technology transfer and keeping the administration costs low to kind of come up with our benefits for the future. Leaving you with a couple things that we're working on, and I'll be going through this, we'll be going through this too on the tour coming up. We're not going to be able to see the main line or the old westbound because of traffic right now and construction that's taking place this week. But this year we've been doing some different studies, and we started up with NRRA as we're looking at coming up with different ways of maintaining HMA and PCC roadways. We've got a number of different studies with partial depth repairs, microsurfacing, thin overlays. We've done a lot of stuff with fiber reinforced concrete. The idea is it worth putting fibers in the concrete? Can you go thinner with concrete when you use fibers? What happens when it cracks when you have fibers in the concrete? Things like that. The bypass or the original westbound, we're doing lots of things with HMA overlays. Most researchers, however you say that, they like to focus on new construction, but really the reality is we need to focus on rehabilitation. That's where the game's at these days, like the charts I showed earlier. But we're doing some HMA overlays and kind of looking at enhancing compaction and how those performance of those different sections work out, along with partial depth repairs that we do on our concrete pavements. The low volume road is where we're going to tour tomorrow, and I think we're going to actually walk most of the loop. We're going to have a beautiful day to get out there and look around, but we're really excited to have you all out there and see the facility. But we've done some new sections. We also have some maps showing all the old sections and studies that are going on. Again, we have some stuff where we talked about doing fiber reinforced city streets. Can you build a 3-inch concrete? You might say maybe we can't after seeing the cracks in it. You're going to see some things related to early opening. We had the whole question about can you drive trucks on concrete right away, or what happens when you do. We actually put 1.5 inch ruts in some concrete, seeing what damage over time that has, and loaded different sections, kind of looking at maturity and things like that. We also looked at optimizing mixes. How much cement do you actually need to put in mixes, concrete mixes? We did some stuff with cold central plant recycling. We have sections looking at using wrap back into a cold central plant mix with emulsion or with foam, with chip seals or thin overlays on top of those. Recycled bases, crushed concrete, different types of recycling that goes on in the bases, what effect that has, what seasonal characteristics those have over time, and use of large stone sub-bases. And all these studies that we're kind of talking about here related to the NRRA kind of priorities that were set by both the states and the different associate members. So you see a few sections like that. Jerry's going to talk a few on other examples of MnROAD. He's going to get more into the recycling side of it. But we've done some really good work related to full depth recycling, FDR, with emulsion and things like that. We've had really good performance on those. It's really talked about demonstrating projects. Jerry will be talking about cells 2, 3, and 4 on our main line. And those cells were ones that we have 3 inches of asphalt with the stabilized materials underneath. Not many people thought they would last, but we really have very few cracks, very few ruts after 10 years. They've outperformed our expectations. So I think that's hats off to your industry on kind of promoting that technology for owners of different roadways that we have. So I guess leaving you with how to get involved. Again, we do Research Pays Off seminars. We're actually doing one, or we did one. We're in the process of doing one right now. It is the 3rd Tuesday of the month, 10 to 12, or 10 to 11 each time. But please, you can get into that and kind of view that. That's something you can do at your desk, at your office. We started that a few years ago, and that seems to be very successful. NRRA, getting involved with NRRA membership. Again, we have conferences in the spring. We had ARRA here last year. In the spring we did some workshops with ARRA, and that worked out well. But getting involved with ARRA would be great with the research partnership, and along with the NCAT and different things like that. You know, I think being part of NRRA would be helpful for you guys too, because we've been talking about doing different types of things like we've done in Malacca on other test sections that we could do throughout the state with recycling as kind of the basis.